for Communication Studies Course 511, Critical Approaches to Public Communications. I'm John Peterson. In today's society, the meaning of masculinity has been understood not through a man's own behavior, but what has been accepted through roles of the medium. In his book, Reading Audiences, Young People in the Media, David Buckingham says that masculinity is neither fixed nor given, but actively defined and constructed through social interaction and discourse. He explains how masculine identity becomes a matter of social definition and continued and exhausting negotiation where boys must prove to the world the worth of their masculine identity. Today, I'll be rhetorically analyzing a Men's Health magazine cover with the help of SCSU Community Psychology, Counseling, and Family Therapy professor, Dr. Steve Hoover, who now joins me on the phone. Dr. Hoover, elaborate a little more on Buckingham's theory of masculinity being constructed through social interaction and discourse.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is an issue that, and as we keep in mind the concept of masculinity, we need to keep in mind that it does wax and wane over the lifespan. So I think when you're talking about young men, adolescent through college age, you're talking about a group that is very strongly influenced by a need to construct, and it really is a constructed, whether they are aware of it or not, a constructed identity. That does change over the lifespan, but its biggest impact often, and its most detrimental impact often, is in those younger men, adolescents through early adulthood. And there are a lot of forces that, quite honestly, in order to work in the world, you end up buying into, depending on your peer group. And that's a big factor with this. And there's much more of a recognition of the non-traditional masculine ideals. There's been a rise of the so-called nerds. You watch, like, The Big Bang Theory, if we talk about social messages, and those guys are successful for their intellect, their kind of nerdiness, but not the traditional masculinity in the sense of an embodied masculinity. So part of the function we need to keep in mind is that the peer group does, in fact, have a huge impact on constructing and negotiating and enforcing masculinity.
Let's move to our picture here. Right away, Doctor, I gained familiarity from the man used in this cover, Jason Statham. He is an Hollywood actor that plays many live action roles that require guts, glory, and, dare I say, manly attributes such as a fit body and a tough man attitude. A lot of men may look to Jason as a role model or actively behave in the manner portrayed in his films. In my opinion, Dr. Hoover, judging by the words used in the magazine cover, more muscles, six-pack abs, dress for more sex, the message portrays a traditional masculine identity that advises a man to achieve Jason's body figure if they want to be more attractive and have, quote, your best body ever.
Sure. I mean, if you just look at this, we're talking fast in food, hard as far as muscle. We've got six-pack. We've got a lot of quick, so see results in just. And then, of course, the link with sex and lots of phrases around muscle and sexuality. And then, it's clearly geared towards a youthful aspect. So there's lots of quickness, less work, fast, big, strong, and all of that, of course, is leading toward the implication that this leads towards sex. And that we dress more for sex. 1,293 sexy women confess what they want in bed. So, you pull those together and you've got an image of this very lean, muscular, youthful-looking, although, I mean, you've got some of the hair loss. But again, that's not a problem nowadays because the shorter hair, the shaved head is actually a plus, and all that leading and pulling towards sex. So the image here is of a certain type of male that is valued and is promoted in that context. So, and it's almost impossible when you look at something like this to find something that, in a more clinical way, we could talk about healthy lifestyles and healthy eating. If I'm trying to find out about good diets, about health, even across the lifespan, this is a contradictory message in many ways for that kind of, I have to buy into this if this is what I'm going to view as health for a man.
Staying on the topic of health, and to close our discussion today, it's sometimes difficult for a man to control his own mental and physical health status when struggling to survive in a hegemonic society. A society where a man doesn't have a choice but to live in a lifestyle that is lived by the majority of his peers. Will Courtenay, in his article Constructions of Masculinity and Their Influence on Men's Well-Being, A Theory of Gender and Health, explains that when men struggle to adapt to societal norms, health-related beliefs and behaviors occur, including the denial of weakness or vulnerability, emotional and physical control, the appearance of being strong and robust, dismissal of any need for help, a ceaseless interest in sex, and the display of aggressive behavior and physical dominance. Dr. Hoover, when talking about this hegemonic state of living, this hegemonic society one may deal with, it is difficult for that person to really go on and live in their own way, because when being surrounded by a group of peers that live a certain way, that's the majority's way, and sometimes that's just the way that one person deals to live with.
Yeah, if you're not like this, if you're not portrayed in any of these things or this, the default is to actively oppose it, which means you have to actively oppose this. So the obligation is that you accept this, and if you don't, then you have to actively come up with a mechanism, mental or social, that rejects this, which also makes this then the default or the primary mode of displaying or acting as a masculine male.
In today's discussion, Dr. Steve Hoover and myself talked about how masculinity is formed through social interaction and discourse. We analyzed a Men's Health magazine cover and how it is geared towards a traditional masculine identity of achieving the stereotypical portrayal of a male, and we also touched on the struggles that a man could face when trying to form his own identity in a hegemonic society. Dr. Steve Hoover, SCSU Community Psychology, Counseling, and Family Therapy Professor. Thanks for joining me today, Doctor.
You're welcome. Thank you.